Alright, so in the last video, we went in and set up our dice. Alright, so we basically created two integers to hold the number or the roll of the dice. And then down here, we basically set them to a random number using the random number generator, which the random class can be found in this java.util library. And then we printed out the values of those numbers. Now don't forget, you got to put a stipulation on them if you don't want really high numbers. So we set ours to 6. And then we added 1 to that 6 because, of course, it's going to give us 0 to 5. So if we get a 0, we want to add 1 to it so we get the 1. And, of course, that just follows along. So when we get to 5, we're going to add that 1 so we get to 6. So we should generate numbers between 1 and 6 for both dice. And then we said we're going to put it in our game loop or our rolling loop. So remember, this outer loop is the player loop. That's where we draw in their name and we draw in their score, depending on which player we're on. Alright, so let me go ahead and create a for loop down here. Alright, so this is kind of how I'm going to set up my for loop. And I didn't pop the values in here yet because I want to go over them with you. So my thinking is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the score for the current player. So remember, on this loop, the score is going to be whatever player we're on. So if we're on player 4, that's what score we're going to have here. So I'm going to grab that, pop that in here. Now K is equal to that score, and then I'm going to check K to see if it's less than our winning score or 100. But I don't want to hard code it in here. Okay, I want that to be a variable that I set at the top of my game, because when you get into more complex games, of course, you might be checking that variable throughout your program. So the last thing you want to do is have to go in there and change that variable and find every use of that variable throughout your game if you use it 20 times. So we'll set that at the top of our game. And we'll make it a final because we're not going to touch it. We're just going to use it to see if we're at the end of our game. Alright, so that's going to look a little bit like this here. Final, int, and whatever you decide to call it. Now the rule of thumb is if you're using a final, you capitalize all the letters. Alright, and then I set it equal to 100. So you can come in here later on if you want to make the game longer. You can change this number to 500 and you don't have to change anything else in your code. Or if you want to make it like less points, you can always take it down to 50. Alright, so let's get back down here to our inner for loop or our nested for loop for the game. Alright, so we're going to change this to that variable. And of course, whatever you named it. And mine just happens to be win score. Alright, and then if you remember how these loops work, so we get the score. Let's say that we come in, it's 96. We're going to check to see if 96, since we set that equal to K, is less than 100. And if it is, we're going to run through our loop. Then we're going to add, at the end of our loop, we're going to add something to K. And that something, in this case, is whatever both dice equal. So basically we can just use die 1 and die 2. Alright, just like that. And as you can see, they're underlined. And the reason they're underlined is because we haven't initialized them or give them a value. So you can change that or actually fix that just by setting both of these equal to 0. And as you can see, it fixed that. Alright, so when we come in here, we got 96, like I say. We check that. Is that less than 100? Yes. We do whatever's in here. And then one of those things we're going to do is we're going to roll the dice. So let me go ahead and grab these dice. Control X to cut and Control V to paste. All right, and then I'm going to grab one of these, pop that in here, because I'm going to try and show you a couple things, and then once we get done, we're basically going to say all is good. All right, so what I did here was I added a couple more lines, just so that you could see it print out and how it's going to work. All right, and then we'll finish this video and pick it up in the next video, but basically we're going to roll at least once out here. And of course I don't have anything to stop this, so what we're going to do is when we get inside this for loop, we're going to grab the score, and the current score for each player is going to be 0. All right, we're going to check, is 0 less than 100, or the winning score? And it is, so we're going to go down here, we're going to roll the dice, get 2 random numbers. All right, and then we're going to let you know what you rolled, and that your current score is, current total is, and of course we have to tell you because we haven't incremented K yet. Okay, so whatever K is at this point, which will be 0 plus the 2 die, we're going to give you that score here. Then we're going to come down here and go to the loop, and now K plus equals whatever the dice are. So if it's a 2 5s, it'll be K plus 10. So then when we come back in here, it's going to let you know what you rolled again. So let's just say you roll 2 more 5s, so you get another 10. Then it should say your current total score is, of course, K is still 10 because we haven't incremented it yet, plus die 1 and die 2, which would be whatever 20, give you 20 if you rolled another 10. And then, of course, we'll increment that. And we'll keep doing that until K is greater than or equal to the win score, or 100. And then once we get out of that, it'll let us know all is good. All right, so let me go ahead and run this. Hopefully that makes sense. And if not, like I say, we'll walk through the results down here in just a minute. So I'm going to do 2 players. This dice hasn't come into play yet, which we'll pick that up probably in the next one where we decide like what the dice are. So if we pick 1 dice, of course we will never use dice 2. All right, and dice 2 will always equal 0, and that's why we set it to 0 up here. All right, so we got 2 players, and we'll say Jonna and Lily. All right, so remember, yeah, we're forced to stop here and roll. So I'm going to hit the R, and once I hit the R, you're going to see a lot of stuff print out. Oh, and hit enter. Okay, so let's go back and look through this. So you rolled a 4 and a 5. Current total is 9. All right. And why is it 9? Because, of course, K was 0. And we rolled a 4 and a 5. So if you add all that together, that's 9. And then we rolled a 1 and a 6, or a 7. So if you add 7 to 9, we get 16. Okay. And then 5, 21. So as you can see, this is actually working. All right, and then once we get to current total is 105 because we was at 97 and then added 8. All right, so now the K, all right, is no longer less than 100. So we break the loop and say all is good. Now if I do the same thing down here, of course it should generate different numbers, and I don't know what I hit there. Anyways, R, okay. And now we break the loop, but as you can see, the current total is 104, where up here it was 105. And here you got a 3 and a 5, so we got 8, and then a 5 and a 3. So that's 16, 22, 28. All right, and of course we're not kicking them out yet because they're rolling 1s, but that just kind of gives you an idea of how this loop is going to run. And then, of course, once we break out down here, we're basically going to say whatever player we're on is the winner. All right. So hopefully that's making some sense to you. Like I say, play around with it if you want, change some things up, and then we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.